Welcome to the Town Board meeting, Thursday, May 17th. Please rise and salute the flag. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Emergency exits are to my right, behind the town attorney, and also the door you came in. Roll, please.
Councilwoman Samoji? Here. Councilman Morris?
Here.
Councilman Gutierrez?
Here.
And Supervisor Crody?
Here.
And let the record reflect that Councilwoman Doyle will be absent this evening.
Okay, this evening we're going to have a presentation by Northeast Community Center Transportation Program. Jennifer Dolly was unable to be here tonight, so we will be having the presentation with Anna Kloon and Ivana Powers.
These are the presentations along with
You got most of it around?
Yeah.
yeah, thank you.
It's a one packet.
Pass the whole thing as a packet.
Greetings. I'm here to report on a very successful year with our Dial-A-Ride program. We're also known as Northeast Dutchess Transit. We're trying very hard to transition the name to Northeast Dutchess Transit, but we're known colloquially here as Dial-A-Ride. And we serve constituents of Amenia. We have about, right now we have about 45 riders that are consistent, that consistently use our program here in Amenia. And as you can see with our pie charts, that we serve seniors with and without disabilities, along with adults 18 through 59 years old with and without disabilities as well. And these are physical disabilities such as needing the wheelchair van and assistance getting in and to and out of the vehicle, which we also provide. We provide rides for a number of purposes, the vast majority of which are medical trips to and from Sharon Hospital, Poughkeepsie, dialysis service, and cancer services as well. And that's our basic report. Do you have any questions about our services at this time?
No.
I just want to also say that we are really excited about moving forward this year with increased efficiency in providing more rides for a better value for our program, and looks like we're doing well in that direction. So.
Could you describe how people can take advantage of your services?
Absolutely. So we have a call-in service. We have a phone number, which they call in. We also have a website and a Facebook page. All local agencies, from every medical office in this area to churches to social service agencies or mental health or recovery agencies, they all have our cards, they all have our information, and we recommend that they give out our information as much as possible. We also have a Spanish speaker in the office 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 to 12 to assist with Spanish speaking calls as well.
How far in advance do you recommend that people call to?
Between 3 and 5 days, but I always encourage people to call in, even if it's the same day, because chances are they can hop on a ride or there's a cancellation. So I always encourage people to try, even though it's not 3 to 5 days. So basically all the time, but a good 3 to 5 days headway of planning time is helpful for us.
Don't want to. Oh, I see. Yeah, 550 rides by riders, residents of Amenia, from in that period, April 1st through March 31st. I thought I misunderstood.
Thank you for your thoughtful questions.
Yeah, I actually have one more, just, sorry, I'm full of questions.
Yes, yes, I love it.
If you could just describe how you're organized, you're not a county service, you're,
No, we do accept some funds from Office of the Aging, and specifically for our senior riders. So that's a minimal piece of our funding is through the Office of the Aging. It's actually on one of the last pages here. Yes. Sure, absolutely.
So
would you like to go
Up to the microphone, please.
I'm sorry. I'll speak to the funding. We became an independent, on-demand transportation provider. The Northeast Community Center did, and on July 1st, 2016. And our chief funder is the New York State Department of Transportation. We have a Section 5310 grant that prioritizes the travel needs of seniors and persons with disabilities. So that's our first priority. And because we have so much call for medical transportation, our priority is medical transportation for seniors and persons with disabilities. After that, we can serve any adults ages 18 and up for any travel purpose, if there's room. And we've done some special shopping trips. That's what the picture in the booklet is from. And we try to serve the needs of our community. So then our secondary funders are the Foundation for Community Health in Sharon. They've been with us in transportation from the beginning. And the towns contribute. That's why we're here tonight, to solicit your support, tell you about what we do and solicit your support. The County Office for the Aging, the Eastern Dutchess Rural Health Network, and those other foundations are a small local foundation called Plymouth Health, and the Sisters of Mercy, which is related to Catholic Charities in Poughkeepsie. So,
and as a nonprofit, you do take private donations as well?
Services are free, but we take donations, and people do donate.
On average, it's about $200 a month of donations from clients. That's service area wide.
Well, the town of Amenia has supported you for many years now. We have a line in our budget where, we, as like a grant to you for $2,000.
We thank you for it. And yeah, we're happy to serve the residents of Amenia. And I just want to call attention to our rides are increasing for us. In this time period, more than 3,000 rides, right? Trips, one-way trips.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a wonderful service you provide to people with disabilities and seniors and people who don't drive. And we so much appreciate it for our taxpayers.
Thank you.
How many vehicles do you have?
We have 2 vehicles that we use every single day. One is a it's a Ford Transit van that has a wheelchair lift, and it seats, well, with the wheelchair piece, it seats about 6 people if we have the other seats removed for the wheelchair area. And we do at least 1 wheelchair ride a day in our program, not specifically to Amenia, but service area wide. So the word is getting out more and more that people can move with us, and that's really special.
And you have volunteer drivers too also.
We also have several volunteer drivers that drive their own vehicles, which is very, very helpful. And they really do provide a very specific service where they sort of like more like companionship for the ride as well. They'll often go out to lunch and have a real special day with some of our seniors. So, and our seniors really appreciate that time and attention, and they get to have fun too, a little bit.
Well, I know that Tally Ho Estates uses your service quite a bit.
Yes.
Quite a bit, because we have a lot of people up in age and they no longer can drive or get around and stuff. So I see the vehicles coming in almost daily, taking someone someplace. And I know they really appreciate it. And I really appreciate the service that you do for them.
Yeah. Well, we love it. So, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sharon?
Sharon Kroger. I've been reviewing the last draft of the water bill This is a bill that had a lot of discussion years ago. The town board was then totally different, and so current members may not be aware of some of the concerns and discussions that took place. I want to say that I see real progress. I think there's been a lot accomplished. However, I want to review just a couple of the difficulties and suggest that this get more study before you try to enact it. The basic conceptual problem years ago, and which still exists, are the fact that most of the language comes from boilerplate from towns that are totally different in structure. Amenia is different from everywhere else. So if you have towns, most of them larger, with a central organization and going outward, the language that's there might work for those towns. But here you have 6 separate hamlets, and one of which has inherited this water system, which works here. And I see that you have now in this draft labeled it appropriately Amenia Water District Number 1. This applies only to Ameniaville, which is basically the Four Corners and the Depot Hill and the surrounding area. It doesn't apply in any way to Wassaic Hamlet, to South Amenia Hamlet, to Amenia Union Hamlet, to Leedsville Hamlet, or to Smithfield, which are totally rural places with rural private wells that the owners have to dig and work on and maintain. So it applies, but it applies to the Ameniaville section of the town, which is okay, but then the language throughout should be similar and should clarify that so that we don't get the language, some of the stuff that's taken from other towns just refers to the public water supply. And when you say that, you're implying that whoever you put in charge of Amenia has total power over, like a czar, over all the other hamlets and all the rural situations, which is not the case. So that's the basic conceptual problem with the model. So the job of the town board, I think, is when they go through this and review it, that they make sure that they are saying what they think they're saying, because it slips back and forth between these two. A second concern is that there's very cursory mention of the water committee. It basically says there's a water committee and they make recommendations to the board. But this is not really adequate, and the way that current water committee has been functioning in the last decade hasn't been adequate. It used to be a very strong committee, and it used to be many years ago policy making, and now it's recommendatory to the town board, which is good. But in that case, you need to specify how are the members chosen, how do they choose their chairman, what procedures are necessary, and build some accountability into that so that it's in the law. That's referred to on page 5 if you're looking for it. So I'll just make those 2 comments. Oh, I wanted to say something else. There are, besides that district, Amenia Water District Number 1, there are at least 3, and probably more, but I know of 3 public water systems that are totally separate. One is up on at the Wassaic State School with a magnificent water system that's there. Now they're regulated by the county health department and the physical engineering as well. The great water supply that's famous is in Tally Ho. That spring is like famous in all the world. It's written up, I think, in some of the geology places. And they have a relationship directly to the county. And then Leedsville has always had its own system of springs and water system, which is private, and it relates to the county. So this is all going on separate and apart from what you're trying to regulate here. And I think you have to keep that in mind as you do this. Rather than be more specific, a lot of this is obviously standard and it works. I would say that one way to do this, you don't have to take this suggestion, but if you could get 5 interested, knowledgeable people to sit down and be a committee for a week to make recommendations that would make your lives easier, that wouldn't be a bad thing to do. Thanks.
Thank you.
Stan?
How you doing? Stan Whitehead. I was the town of Amenia Highway Superintendent for 24 years. I also worked for Joe Murphy for approximately 2 years, so a total of 26 years. January 1st, I retired. I worked with 8 different supervisors. I had 39.55 years in the retirement system, Tier 1 with the New York State. We did many big jobs as I was the highway superintendent. We put in bridges, sidewalks, and during my time, we had no lawsuits, we had no bad audits, we had no bad safety inspections, we had no big comp cases, and everything I did down to the highway garage, even if I had a flat tire on Deep Hollow Road, I'd put it out for bids. I'd go back and get 3 bids for a tire. And everything I did right. And for the last 3 years, I talked to the supervisor, Victoria, about me getting medical insurance when I retired. And she always replied, "Don't worry, you're going to get it." I said, "Well, I want to make sure I'm going to get it. If I'm not going to get it, I'm going to leave." "Well, don't do anything stupid, you're going to get it." So I stuck around like an idiot. Now I have no insurance. April 30th, I had to sign a paper saying that I was getting off the town insurance. Well, I think I was done wrong. I think I deserve some help with some medical insurance. Now I'm told I can go on COBRA, $850 a month, or the better plan for $900 a month. I can't afford that. I shouldn't have to afford it. Other state employees, county employees, the school bus drivers, the prisoner guards, the jailhouse people, they all get medical insurance after they retire, some kind of help. I just don't think it right that Amenia doesn't offer it. I've been with a lot of highway superintendents. They retired, they got medical insurance. Other town employees that work for the highway, when they retired, they got some kind of medical insurance. Our foreman, he's been there almost 30 years. What is he going to get when he retires? The same thing I did? Nothing. That's not right. I've been in 2 executive sessions. There's only 3 board members there. So I never even got a vote. Not even a vote on it. I think it's totally wrong that I don't get insurance when I did everything by the book. And that's all I'm going to say. And I don't blame the highway crew for trying to join the union. If they're smart, they'll do it again.
Is there any other public comment?
I didn't sign up.
That's okay. I thought you were here for a reason.
Oh, actually I wasn't. I was here about the water bill.
Okay.
Did you tell Stan that?
I told him that we were discussing it.
Well, Victoria, you're a straight-up person.
I know.
Did at any time you lead him to believe that he was going to get health insurance?
I'm not answering any questions.
Oh, Jesus. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? Supervisor's report. Wassaic Trail to the Train update. Town attorney is working with a title search company for required certifications. The right-of-way agreement to purchase real property with taking maps emailed to property owner has been emailed to the property owner for execution. Town of Amenia Highway Garage update. OGS approved the abandonment map from DEC with the 5-acre parcel for the highway garage. The rest of the abandonment process is being worked on by OGS. Old Amenia landfill update. Required recording document from the Dutchess County Clerk's office for the conservation easement has been emailed to DEC for them to start the process of delisting the site from the state Superfund registry or have it reclassified. Littering on county roads. I called Stephen Gill, traffic engineer at Dutchess County Department of Public Works, who will have signs and other deterrents put on Old Route 22, County Route 81, and Bog Hollow Road, County Route 3. REDC Round 8 CFA information session, attendance session at the FDR Library on May 15th for additional information required for grant application, such as for the Main Street and Complete Streets grants for downtown economic revitalization and also for climate smart grants. Town clerk report.
Good evening. The minutes of April 19th and May 3rd were circulated prior to the meeting. Is the board ready to make action on those sets of minutes?
Yes, I am. Was it April 19th? Where are they?
First one was 19th, in our last set of the packets that went out in the email that
Oh, right.
was resent. Do you need mine?
Maybe. Well, I reviewed them anyway, so I will make a motion to accept the minutes as presented for April 19th.
I second.
Councilwoman Smoji?
Yes.
Councilman Morris?
Abstain?
Councilman Gutierrez?
Yes.
Supervisor Prodi?
Abstain. We weren't here.
We will carry these minutes. No, we have to, but I'm still presenting them because there's material in them. So the motion fails, and we'll bring it back next month. I also present to you May 3rd. And that is the one where Councilman Gutierrez was absent.
I had the flu.
It's okay, you were allowed to have the flu.
I motion that we accept.
May 3rd. I second.
Councilwoman Smoji?
Yes.
Councilman Morris?
Yes?
Councilman Gutierrez?
Abstain.
Supervisor Prodi?
Yes.
I also report that the vouchers have been audited by the town clerk's office, and I'm presenting them to you in the total amount of $112,387.98. And to itemize out, General Fund A, $84,336.17. Highway Fund, $15,344.01. Amenia Lighting, $1,638.28. Wasake Lighting, $573.25. Amenia Water, $9,156.52. Capital Heating, $1,339.75. Again, for a total of $112,387.98.
I make the motion, we accept them.
I'll second it.
Discussion?
Yes.
We talked a little bit about this on email, but the Morris and Associates.
It wasn't Morris, it was Crawford.
Crawford, my apologies. Crawford and Associates. That's my error. That was $5,000 for the ADA audit of.
That's for doing the whole project, at ADA and the windows.
And the windows.
Yes, we approved, I believe it was $15,000 to do both, and that's one of the payments for it.
Got it. Okay. I didn't recognize it because I didn't know we were paying in installments. So. And then the one that is Morris Associates for the heating system, the 13.
That's to working on the control system.
Is that not happening under warranty with the installer? Why is Morris Associates?
Because they're working out some of the problems with it. But they're pretty much through with that. That's why we got the performance bond extended.
Right. Okay.
Good. Councilwoman Smoji?
Yes.
Councilman Morris?
Yes.
Councilman Gutierrez?
Yes.
Supervisor Perotti?
Yes.
I do report, make final, well, not final notice of the amount, but our tax collection to date is $476,000. $476,000, $461.03. I'm making this final reminder to all of our town residents that payments are now past due. I am collecting payments here at the local office through May 31st. After that time, you need to contact the county, Dutchess County Commissioner of Finance at 22 Market Street. They can be reached at area code 845-486-2027. Unfortunately, once I turn those numbers over to the Commissioner of Finance, I am unable to tell you what your most current amount is due. As I reported at the beginning of the month, we mailed 118 late notices. And I give that friendly reminder for our DEC part of my office. Open burn restriction may have been lifted on May 14th, but please remember when you're doing your open burn to have a water source nearby, have a rake, have your tractor, never leave an open burn left unattended.
Helps to let your neighbors know, too,
Yeah, don't.
from experience.
I did present to the town board last month, but all members weren't present, but I did present the audit that was performed by RBT for the fiscal year ending for the town clerk, tax collector, and justice. At that time, I'm asking for the acceptance of these reports. Once they are accepted, I can then circulate to the state for the justice court, but they're going to need these minutes to be attached to that report. So I'm looking for approval of those reports.
Make a motion to approve the reports from RBT for the cash procedures for the town clerk, tax collector, and justice court.
I second.
Discussion.
Sure.
Overall, I noticed that it was a pretty good report. They didn't find many deficiencies at all. There were a couple that they did note, and they made some recommendations. What's our plan to implement some of those recommendations?
The recommendations that have been made which department are you on?
I'm looking specifically at the method of payment be entered on carbon receipts for the town clerk.
Carbon receipts?
That was their recommendation. I thought it was...
We do give carbon receipts for everything. So what had happened was, when we give a carbon receipt for every single cash transaction, and then, for example, and it just happens to be, we're going to be talking about it anyway later, when I give you your carbon receipt, the computer also generates out a receipt for every customer to get. This receipt number doesn't match the carbon receipt number because this is generated, so if I'm doing baseball starts off with its beginning number and it goes through a cyclone. Then when I'm giving out a marriage license, it's going through another cyclone. Then I'm handing out copies and I'm using one carbon book.
Pad from 1980.
Yeah, I'm not,
Yeah.
It is, and it's come from the town clerks. Even though when I print these, when I hand out a handicap, which there's no money being exchanged, I still get a receipt. So anything that I process, it has a receipt number, so that way we can then generate this report that shows everything, and it'll say that there's zero, and they're gonna be like, well, why are you issuing out a receipt that's a zero? Well, there's really not a receipt being issued when money is not collected, but any transaction that I enter into the system, it's recorded as a receipt. So like I say no when I'm printing out handicap permits. So she wasn't able to get that number to match that book, but the only time that they ever match is when there's cash being exchanged.
Understood. Thank you for clarifying.
Thanks for asking, and thanks for pointing out it was a good audit. And once they're approved, they're online.
I have no further questions.
Councilwoman Smoji?
Yes.
Councilman Morris?
Yes.
Councilman Gutierrez?
Yes.
And Supervisor Perotti?
Yes.
Also at the last meeting, the board interviewed candidates for the position of custodian. Was the board ready to make action on that?
I had the flu.
Okay, so the other three that were ready,
Yeah, I am.
I just need a motion.
Oh, okay, I make a motion that, should I read that we had his references back and he cleared? I'm
Yes.
saying it, so I guess you're going to say that. He was a reliable, dependable, hard worker. A background check came back clean. and we would like to hire him for 20 hours at $15.76 an hour. And his name is James Morris, not this James Morris, but
Morse, not
Morse.
Morris.
Morris. Oh, I'm
I'm
sorry.
Morris, he's Morse.
And so I make a motion that we hire this gentleman
As custodian.
as custodian. Yes, thank you.
I'll second.
Councilwoman Smoji?
Yes.
Councilman Morris?
Yes.
Councilman Gutierrez?
Yeah,
Supervisor
abstain.
Brody?
Sorry.
Yes.
Is going to abstain, and Supervisor Brody just, so motion carries. I make the announcement that summer camp is right around the corner. I do have applications for summer camp employees. If those that are interested, stop by the town clerk's office. Applications are due on May 30th, so I can get them to Kathleen and she can do the necessary follow-ups. I do have a pretty long announcement, and I'm going to read it. I'd like to announce to the residents of the town of Amenia that on April 23rd, I received my registered municipal clerk. The RMC is a program that aids municipal clerks in improving the job performance and recognizes the professionalism of a municipal clerk's office. The specific education requirements must be achieved before this prestigious designation of registered municipal clerk is awarded. Qualifications of the applicant are reviewed and approved by the New York State Town Clerk Certification Committee. It is an honor to receive this prestigious designation of registered municipal clerk from the New York State Town Clerks Association. As a public servant, continuing education is a vital part of performing my role, and it is rewarding to have my hard work and dedication to my professionalism recognized. So I'd like to bring that attention to the board.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I know, it's like 3 years, now I can work on my master's. A couple community announcements. Our Recreation Commission did have a very brief meeting earlier this evening before the meeting, and they are going to be working diligently to bringing back our cheer program, so stay tuned, and I'll be announcing that information come the end of the summer. Due to the upcoming rain, the fishing derby that was scheduled over at the Venturello Pond has been canceled, and the new date is going to be scheduled for July 14th, so please mark your calendars. It's a great event that the Lions Club puts on for all of the children in the community. And also with the inclement weather pending, the car show that was scheduled has been canceled, and they will be looking to come in the fall. So I'll keep you stay tuned for the new dates on that. And just because it's raining, it's not going to stop us from getting out. Friday, May 18th at the Wassake Firehouse, they are having bingo. So Wassake is looking to bring bingo back to town. Doors are going to open at 5:30, bingo starting at 6:30. Unfortunately, those under 18 are not permitted to play any of the games, but do come out and support the Wassake Fire Company. And after you're done playing your bingo and all the rain has come and gone after Saturday, come support the auxiliary at the Wassake Firehouse. They're having their Sunday breakfast and a bake sale. So we got some fun activities going on in the hamlet of Wassake. And that'll conclude my reports. Thank you.
There is no Highway Department report. Are there any other committee reports?
Vicky's behalf, she forwarded me a CAC meeting. It looks like they met on May 16th. I was not in attendance. This is from Vicky. The primary issue that came out of that was discussion around the use of herbicides, specifically Roundup, on town properties, and very specifically in the rain garden behind Town Hall by the playground. And they drafted a sample motion for the town board to consider passing, which prohibits the use of Roundup to maintain the rain garden next to the playground. So I will forward this draft around to the board, and we can look at it and discuss when Vicky's back.
Okay, I thought they were having planting day this Saturday.
This Saturday is going to be planting day. I believe you start off in the Fountain Square at 10 a.m. I know that Eric Eschbach was going to get the flowers, so help out when you can.
Any other committee reports?
Although it's not a committee, but just to remind the committees, including the boards, that per your policy that the town board adopted, minutes should be turned over to the town clerk within, when they're approved. I did speak to planning board this week, and I was able to get updated since February, which makes it very hard for me to be able to assist the residents when they're asking for copies of things and resolutions. So I would ask, again, I'm coming back to the town board as liaisons of those committees, if you could please share that information. I'm trying to make a good, strong website, and I really need the backing of this board to see that their committees are in compliance with your own rules that you've set. Thank you.
Okay, we have a resolution number
26.
What's that number, Dawn?
26.
26?
And I'm like,
approval of initial rate request of the Silo Ridge Sewage Works Corporation. We have a letter from our town engineer, Roy Soika and Andrews, based on our review of the petition and supporting documentation. We take no exception to the rates as proposed. We find the rates proposed to be fair, reasonable, and adequate to maintain the proper operation and maintenance of the sewage works improvements. Should be understand that during the initial phase of operation, the developer will be subsidizing the operational costs. We recommend that the Town of Amenia Town Board approve the initial rates as proposed. Also attached are the petition for the rate request approval. Whereas in October 2013, Silo Ridge Ventures submitted applications to the Planning Board of the Town of Amenia to develop mixed-use resort community at 670 plus acres located west of New York State Route 22, north and south of U.S. Route 44, in the Town of Amenia, identified as parcel numbers 7066-00, 732-810, 7066-00-860725, 7066-00-742-300, 7066-00-670-717, 7067-00-709-177, 7066-00-621-131. Whereas a portion of the resort community would also be developed on a portion of an adjoining tax parcel, 7066-00-870-350, owned by the Harlem Valley Landfill Corp. And located in the Town of Amenia. Whereas ultimately the resort community was modified to include, among other things, 52 attached condominiums, 159 single-family detached homes on separate lots, 13 townhouses on separate lots, 21 hotel condominium lodging units, a winery-themed restaurant, an 18-hole golf course, a clubhouse lodge with restaurant, bar, lounge, golf pro shop, family activity barn and lake pavilion, fitness spa, yoga center, golf academy, sales center, and general store, village green, and artisans park overlook, water and wastewater plants, recreational and open space amenities, and related improvements to be owned and maintained by one or more homeowners associations and condominium associations. Whereas in connection with the modified project, the applicant applied to the planning board for, among other things, 1, an amended special permit master development plan, 2, special permit approvals for the golf maintenance facility, golf course improvements, and a wastewater treatment plan to be located on a portion of the HVLC property. 3, a site plan approval for the first phase of the modified project, including the golf maintenance facility, golf course improvements, and WWTP to be located on a portion of the HVLC property. Phase 1 site plan. A preliminary subdivision approval and lot line adjustment to incorporate a portion of the HVLC property And 5, certain waivers and supplementary approvals under the Town of Amenia zoning code and subdivision law. Whereas on July 29, 2015, the Planning Board adopted an amended and restated finding statement with mitigation measures for the modified project under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. Whereas on July 29, 2015, the Planning Board adopted, among other things, Resolution 12 of 2015 approving the Phase 1 site plans for the modified project. Whereas on December 17, 2015, pursuant to New York State Transportation Corporation Law Number 16, the Town Board of the Town of Amenia consented to the creation of the Silo Ridge Sewage Works Corporation to provide wastewater treatment services to the modified project. And whereas on January 13, 2015, the Certificate of Incorporation of the SWC was filed with the New York State Department of State. Whereas on October 16, 2017, the applicant submitted an application to the Planning Board seeking to amend the site plan approval to allow for a modified WWTP on the HVLC property, the WWTP project. And whereas on December 13, 2017, the Planning Board approved an amended site plan for the WWTP project, subject to conditions including the requirement that prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy for the WWTP, the SWC shall post an operation and maintenance bond for the sewage work system, including the WWTP project, in an amount to be determined by the town engineer. Whereas on April 12, 2018, pursuant to the New York State Transportation Corporation's Law in 121, the SWC submitted a petition for initial rate request approval to the Town Board, seeking to set the sewer rates that this SWC may charge to customers in the modified project. Whereas the town engineer, John Andrews, P.E., reviewed the petition and by memorandum dated April 30, 2018, to the Planning Board attorney, issued comments on the proposed petition, including the proposed sewer rates, the town engineer's comment memo. Whereas on May 15, 2018, the SWC submitted a revised petition for initial rate request approval to the Town Board, the revised petition, addressing the comments in the town engineer's comment memo. Whereas SWC reported that it sent a copy of the revised petition to the owner of each lot in the modified project served by the SWC, and whereas the revised petition and related exhibits are incorporated by reference herein, whereas SWC's revised petition included a proposed rate schedule setting forth the proposed initial rates, Exhibit A of the petition, whereas SWC's revised petition included a cost schedule, Exhibit B of the petition, which indicated that the total cost to be recovered annually totaled $421,825.49. Whereas, based on the cost schedule, the proposed rate schedule indicates that the initial rates will be $100 per unit quarterly fee and $0.282 per gallon, dollars per gallon based on unit water meter. Whereas SWC's revised petition included a schedule of lots to receive sewer service in the modified project, Exhibit C, and a schedule of recoup improvement sewer system capital costs, Exhibit D. And whereas the town engineer, John Andrews, P.E., reviewed the revised petition and by letter to the town board dated May 17, 2018, the town engineer's letter concluded that the SWC's initial rates were fair, reasonable, and adequate to maintain the proper operation and maintenance of the sewage work system. The town engineer's letter is incorporated by reference herein. Whereas on May 17, 2018, the town board considered the revised petition and any related public comment at its duly notice regular meeting, and whereas pursuant to New York State Transportation Corporation's Law, Section 121, the initial rates shall be reviewable at interviews of not more than 5 years by the town board, or at any time petition of SWC or motion by the town board on written notice after a period of 90 days. Whereas pursuant to New York State Transportation Corporation Law Section 119, SWC posted operation and maintenance bond to guarantee that the SWC will continue to maintain and operate the sewage work system for a period of at least 5 years. Now therefore be it resolved pursuant to New York State Transportation Law, Section 121, the town board hereby approves SWC's initial rates as $100 per unit quarterly fee and $0.0282 or cents cost per gallon based on unit water meter as set forth in the revised petition. Now therefore be it further resolved pursuant to New York State Transportation Corporation Law, Section 121. These initial rates shall be reviewable, interviews of not more than 5 years by the town board or at any time by petition of the SWC or motion by the town board on written notice after a period of 90 days. I make that motion.
I second.
Discussion? I'm sorry, I just have some, I guess I can't call myself a rookie anymore. Maybe you can help me out. What type of corporation, I guess I'm confused why the town board even,
Juan?
or Juan, yeah, if you want to come, why the town board is involved in reviewing rates. Is this a public benefit corporation or just a private commercial corporation? Or?
It's a transportation corporation, so under the laws of any transportation corporation, the sewer rates are approved by the town, the municipality, where in difference, the water is actually approved by the PSC, the Public Service Commission. So the town allowed us to create a transportation corp, and doing so before that transportation corp is able to charge any fees to the residents, the town has to approve set fees.
Okay, that's super helpful. And then what is the governance mechanism there? Like how, clearly it's a separate entity from Silo Ridge and the...
Correct. So we formed this Silo Ridge Sewage Works Corporation, which establishes the rules and regulations for the sewer and for the Silo Ridge residents, completely separate from the developer itself.
But just in the event, I'm saying if there's a transfer of ownership or something of Silo Ridge, that wouldn't affect anything with regard to the corporation then?
No.
No, that would persist in its current...
The whole process is allowed under New York State law, the Transportation Corporation law, to form Sewage Works or Waterworks Corporation. And in order to sell or process water or sewage across property lines, you have to form this corporation. It requires town board consent to do that, which you granted in about 2015 according to this resolution. And at that time, the board would have also reviewed the bylaws and the certificate of incorporation of that entity. But it serves a public purpose, and it does, at least as far as this goes, requires you to review the rates which your engineer has done, and there's a process and a formula in order to do that. They're entitled to earn a reasonable return on the water they sell, and this is a process in which enables that to happen so that the owners, the customers aren't taken advantage of by the corporation.
Okay, that's super helpful. I was not on the board at that time, so that's good background for me. My question was just sort of about, the separate nature of them and,
It's like any other corporation. They have their own directors and officers, and but that form as authorized by this board to be formed. So in your file somewhere, and not your file, in the town's file, those records do exist.
Okay. Thanks, that's helpful. Learn something every day.
Hopefully.
Okay.
Supervisor Prodi?
Yes.
Councilman Doyle's absent. Councilman Morris?
Yes.
Councilman Gutierrez?
Yes.
And Councilman Samoji?
Yes.
Thank you.
And I think there's another resolution that we'll have to do at the next meeting, besides the rate, because we approved the sewer rates, but this other one, about the inspections, I don't think was right. I don't know.
Right. Last meeting, we approved the bond for that purpose, for the operation and maintenance agreement, but apparently that's still being worked on as far as the actual agreement itself.
Yes.
Yep, so we'll follow up with Dave Everett, who had drafted one. Our council didn't have any comments on it, and was okay with it, but we'll follow up to see where he's at in the process.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, and I'd like to move to the noise ordinance proposed revisions.
Good evening. My name is Charlie Gottlieb from the law firm of Whiteman, Osterman, and Hanna in Albany, New York. We were tasked by the board to take a look at your existing noise ordinance, see if it can be revamped and revised to include a little bit of stronger language, and also do some research involved as to whether or not it would withstand any legal challenges. We've done that task. We've circulated the proposed noise ordinance to the town, and I'm here to answer any questions, but I can quickly kind of go through the concept of the noise ordinance. Luckily, this doesn't happen very often. Back in 2016, the Court of Appeals, the highest court in the state of New York, said that the City of Syracuse noise ordinance withstood legal challenge and was completely valid. Interestingly, that city ordinance did not include any decibel readings. So we saw that a municipality can now regulate noise without having to go to a property line and have a decimal reader. With that being said, the way we structured this proposed law is it prohibits what we've defined as unreasonable noise, which is what your existing code did. We just gave that a new definition and also added some more definitions. So the code prohibits unreasonable noise, which has a definition of something that will offend a reasonable person. And that's the standard and language that the code has to have. We also provided a list of actions, certain activities that will be prima facie evidence of an unreasonable noise. And your code had most of these in there. We just kept including that unreasonable noise standard. One of those is the repetitive nature of an impulsive sound. An example of that is shooting on private property. So if you have impulsive sounds that are being repeated, and those are all defined within this new law, that can be clarified and determined to be unreasonable and therefore in violation of the law. You'll notice when we define unreasonable noise in this new code section, there's a list of certain considerations that the code enforcement officer or public safety officer or police officer should document when they're doing such a violation. With that being said, there's a few things the board might want to consider that we've highlighted in this law and also in some comments we had. One is, do you want to include a point of measurement? So where the building officer or the code enforcement officer listens to the noise and makes his determination. We've put in the code a variance process, which would allow your board to accept applications for someone on their property that they know they're going to violate this and it might be an unreasonable noise, but the town, for whatever reason, might want to allow that noise to occur. This process would allow you to condition that use and that noise. There's also a section in this code, and you had it in your pre-existing law, providing for warnings. If someone's violating this law or perceived to be violating it, the code enforcement officer would issue a warning, and then if it continues, enforcement of this section of the code could go forward. Currently, as it's drafted, the noise ordinance would be enforced by either the town code enforcement officer or any police officer or department that has jurisdiction over the town of Amenia. So that would include your state, your county, and your local police. Also, if there is a violation of this section, it is enforceable via summons and information to local town court. So the code enforcement officer would issue what's called an information, hand it over to the local court. A summons would then go out to the property owner, and then the court proceedings would begin and you would reference the penalties that are within this local law could be enforced. One thing that I'd like to bring to the town's attention, another option for dealing with certain noises is changes to your zoning code. This might include changing definitions of uses, what might be accessory uses. For example, if you have a shooting range or a gun issue on private property, certainly a few shots on private property may be an accessory use to that residential use. It's just a person exercising, their target practicing. But if they step over a certain line, which you might be able to define, you might be able to zone something that would allow you to also address the issues that the town is having. So if you have any other questions, I could certainly go over the local law process and what your next steps might be. I know maybe some members of the board or the public have some questions I could address.
Well, one of the other noise issues we've had is cutting up firewood, especially on a weekend in a residential neighborhood. I mean, we're talking like major logs that get, cut up for, hours at a time. Mm-hmm. And I wondered if, the new noise law would address that.
Sure. So one of the good things about the way this is drafted is you can look to see under, section 80-4, if that cutting of the logs comes with any of those categories. Then you have a stronger case that you're in violation of this noise ordinance. So just thinking off the top of my head, you might look at number 13, noise from tools, machinery, and heavy equipment in the construction, repair, or alteration of property. Now, in your specific fact pattern, this might depend on whether or not the logs are coming from that specific property or not. So you might have a case there. But a noise that offends a reasonable person or an unreasonable noise doesn't necessarily have to fit into one of those categories. 80-3 is a general prohibition of unreasonable noises. So you then look at the definition of unreasonable noise. Your code enforcement officer could look at this list, document the record very well, say that this log cutting on the weekends is an unreasonable noise and it's prohibited by this code. So you would be able to regulate such a thing so long as it is unreasonable. The other thing you might consider is if this certain fact pattern is cutting logs for commercial purposes on residential property, you might task your code enforcement officer with looking at the zoning code and seeing if it's a use that's permitted on the property.
Okay. Now, can you send us recommendations of what we could do in our zoning code?
Yeah, absolutely.
To further solidify our noise code?
Yeah, but we do have a number of very large parcels here. Hunting is something that happens. It happens in my backyard, sometimes without my knowing. And we do have a number of commercial entities that are established with the purpose of allowing for various recreational uses involving guns. So,
okay.
It sounds like we have a lot of leeway with how we would enforce that, but we wouldn't want to penalize the hunting rights of our citizens or the commercial establishments that are set up for that purpose here. So maybe looking at zoning.
Yeah, certainly. What we can do is, this is a great first step, and now we can take a review of the zoning code and see how we might strengthen it. One thing to note is that under New York's general business law, it has a provision that does provide some protections for shooting ranges. So if a shooting range is a permitted use on a piece of property, someone cannot take a legal action against that shooting range for a noise violation if the noise complies with the local code. In this instance, a shooting range, the noise that comes from it might not comply with this local code. So this was a necessary first step. I think now we'll take a look at the code and see how our shooting range is treated, what properties are they permitted on, and how are they defined. And we'll give you guys some recommendations. Would you also like some recommendations on the code related to the tree processing issue that you're hearing around town?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, do you want to, I don't know what you do want to do for next step, because if we're going to move ahead with improving our current noise code, then we're going to have to do introduction to a local law.
Correct. So what
And then we would be able to hold public hearings.
Yes, and there's some blank spaces in here that we would want you guys to fill out. For example, off the top of my head, the filing fee for that variance process.
$450.
So things like that, once we get them finalized, then a member of the board can introduce the local law, and we'll start the home rule process. And just because you introduce the local law certainly doesn't mean that changes can't occur throughout the process.
Okay, and then as far as the zoning recommendations, we do have the zoning review committee.
Yes.
So perhaps once your firm has put that together, we can pass that off to them for review.
Absolutely.
So I make a motion that we authorize Dave Everett's firm to do the introduction to a local law for the next meeting. And then we can move ahead with this process, and we still would have public hearings and be able to make any changes we needed to. But we need to start.
Yes.
Because it's going to take a few months.
And also remind the board that this is, I believe, an unlisted action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. So when we do that introduction, the town would also have to prepare the necessary environmental assessment form and comply with the secret regulations. And we can certainly help with that as well.
Second.
Amy. Councilwoman Smoji?
Yes.
Councilman Morris?
Yes.
Councilman Gutierrez?
Yes.
And Supervisor Perotti?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, solar energy moratorium. Do you know what we want to do with that?
Did you save this one for me?
Yes.
I mean, I still have the same objection to the broad ground-mounted solar, but I also, excuse me, I also missed the presentation by the zoning review committee, which happened during the last meeting, on this particular matter. So
Their presentation is actually on the website,
yeah.
and they just went through and they read that document that's here.
Excellent. So I will review that. I have not yet reviewed the product that came out of that reviews. But yeah, in general, I mean, for residential, when I'll just restate what I said at a previous meeting. When we started this process to discuss a moratorium, the goal was to really, until our zoning code addressed it explicitly, to try and prevent any commercial solar farming activities. At the time, there were a number of less than reputable companies calling up, farmers who may or possibly have been struggling to make ends meet, and offering them promises of this and that, and installing a large field, going bankrupt, disappearing, and generally making a mess. So that was originally the intent behind this. And Scott, I think you've made your point well, and I understand it. But you know, again, my point is that I wouldn't, our intent as a board was not to impede any current projects that any of the citizens of the town may have in progress already. If you're putting down a ground-mounted array, you need to, you know, well, you don't need to, but chances are you're going to pour a pad or something, and then that would be subject to the same setbacks and building inspection process or permit process that we already have in place for pouring that kind of foundation. So, you know.
So, can I just, on that point, the version of the law, the draft of the law, which we started discussing, does apply to currently pending and future applications. If you're concerned about someone that's already in process, and I don't know if anyone is, you could carve that out. You know, it does not apply to pending applications. The issue is, and it became even more apparent to me after the presentation by the Zoning Review Committee last week, is that they are proposing regulations in just about every single district, residential or otherwise, for solar and now for wind and other issues that were addressed there. And that is the time, if you're going to consider a moratorium, is to, if you're going to be going through the process of changing your regulations for legitimate purposes, you don't want there to suddenly be a rush of people coming in to do something in order to get in under the wire. You know, the rush to diligence, that you're going to come in and beat the new law. So when you have a committee out here that's going to propose regulations for solar and wind, even in residential districts, that's when you use this tool to prevent someone from coming in here. If you want to protect someone that has a pending application, you know, you can do it broadly, or you can do it based upon where they are in the review process, whether an environmental determination has been made, whether they paid a fee, whether they've gone and done this or that. You can carve that kind of stuff out. But it's hard. You know, there are areas in the town, in hamlet areas, where solar regulations are going to be important, particularly with respect to your neighbors. So, you know, with all due respect, I still think that now would be the time to protect the town as a whole in light of this document and the intentions of the Zoning Review Committee. And again, as I mentioned last week, you know, while we're doing this, since we haven't introduced a law yet, you really should consider expanding it beyond the solar to address all the issues that they are proposing changes to, or at least wind and solar. I don't think the Airbnbs or the tiny house regulations maybe, you know, don't need to be addressed in the moratorium. But if you're going to do the solar, you may as well do the wind right now as well, and include that as part of your moratorium. It's up to the board. You know, you can go. You don't have to adopt the moratorium, but if you're concerned about, you know, responsible development of these energy products, and the Zoning Review Committee is making recommendations that are going to require permits in all of these districts and impose regulations in all those districts, it's just a practical means of maintaining the status quo until we can adopt the regulations. And I don't know how quickly, honestly. It doesn't sound like they have proposed, other than the districts. The details, you know, need to be worked out. So it's going to take several months to get through that process. And I don't know, you know, I think you're probably in a good window for any kind of solar systems that require clearing of trees, because, you know, you do have environmental regulations and DEC regulations and, you know, bat regulations, which allow you times when you cut down certain types of trees. And so I don't think you'd be looking at a substantial issue with the commercial ones, because they had to cut their trees by March 15th, whatever the date was. Some of the smaller residential ones, you may, but I don't know if you're seeing one application a week or one application a month right now. to be honest. I haven't had that conversation with Mike. But, you know, the board should decide soon. Now that this is out and the committee has made their recommendation, I think the board needs to decide how they want to proceed so that we can introduce a local law. And again, just like the last local law, it's not going to be adopted. There's going to be a public hearing. And, you know, if people come out and they object to that, well, you can certainly amend that version of the local law.
But at least get it started.
At least got started. And you can, you know, so you need to decide whether you want it to cover, as far as what their changes are, what do you want it to cover? And then we can go from there.
Yeah, and that's completely fair, and, you know, I'm just one voice on this board, and, you know, I'll say that I haven't gone through, clearly, the zoning review committee's work yet, but I'm super thankful that somebody's doing that job. But I will say that, you know, their recommendations will ultimately require, we shouldn't take all their recommendations as these will be the future zoning changes of the town. So I wouldn't want to just say they're working on all this stuff, so we need to put a moratorium on all of it, because they're working on it. It still needs to go and be passed through the board. So,
Well, the reason they're doing is because we don't have any regulations.
right.
And so we just, you know, we just want to protect, you know, the town.
Right, but specifically what that means in this case with solar is making the decision between, you know, someone's perceived sight lines of their neighbor's property across the street compared to that property owner's ability to
Well, I think
save some
the
money
intent
on
was
the-
more commercial.
I agree. Initially,
solar.
that was the intent, but, you know, we've moved a little further. Anyways, I've said enough on the topic. I, you know, appreciate all the work that your firm has done putting this together, and look forward to going through the zoning review committee's work. And I don't have.
Are we doing the moratorium or not?
I don't intend to vote for this, but we can happily have a vote, and that's fine.
So it's perfectly all right with you that we don't have any kind of regulations at all?
Like I said, if, for me, I'm trying to, it's not okay that we don't, but for me, I'm trying to weigh the benefit of a homeowner who wants to make an investment and improvement to their property and save money and potentially
The
make
intent isn't to,
excuse me for a second. I'm trying to weigh this person who has that property and that right to do that now versus, you know, maybe a neighbor's perceived slight at the unsightliness of their ground-based array. That's what I'm trying to understand as far as, you know, what this would specifically mean if we passed it today. I do think we should address all these things in our zoning, but we shouldn't penalize people who may be in the process of doing that just because we haven't done any changes to our zoning to date.
Does anybody here know how many applications are pending right now?
I do not.
I don't know.
not very many, if there are any at all.
You know, it's analogous to when
But that's not
the
the point.
Telecommunications Act was enacted and authorized, you know, cell towers to go anywhere, subject to local zoning regulations. When they deferred, you know, zoning control over that to the municipalities, you know, the cell tower companies just, they were flooded the area. So nearly every municipality said, well, we're going to adopt responsible regulations, and we can't let every cell tower come in here now while we're debating what those regulations should be. So universally, most towns adopted a moratorium to allow them to provide and produce reasonable regulations. And then when it was over, then the cell tower companies all came in on a level playing field and subject to those new rules and regulations. This is an exploding issue right now. Solar power is an exploding issue. Not quite potentially as impactful as a cell tower to some people. To some people, it's more impactful.
I agree. I don't disagree. You know, again, for me, it's just, it's a little bit different because you're talking about the cell tower as a commercial, you know, but as
But this is imposing a temporary townwide moratorium on the installation of freestanding or ground-mounted solar energy systems. So this is just temporary until we do all that other stuff that you just spoke about, right?
That's
Till
right.
we check all the boxes. So then I think this is very sensible.
Right, because otherwise, if you're talking about imposing setback requirements in the Hamlet Residential District, which is a small, dense district, right now, there is no regulation to address that. So they could put something wherever they want. At least if you're planning on imposing a 50-foot setback or a 25-foot setback or something like that, now is the time to prevent someone from coming in. Well, apparently you don't live in a hamlet based upon your hunting problem.
No.
People hunt in your backyard in the hamlet?
Yeah, well, I live on the side of a hill. It's a narrow little strip of,
All right.
a very long, narrow little strip.
A moratorium is the only thing that makes sense.
Yes,
Really.
yes.
Right.
And look, you guys are having this conversation for my benefit maybe, but I disagree only because I don't have an application pending or anything. It's not that. I actually do already have solar on my house. I'm fine. But I know that we had to hustle to do it because there were certain federal and state incentives. The state has two different incentives, and they're not insignificant. So the federal incentive is currently set to expire in 2019. The state kilowatt incentive decreases, I think, every month based on how much production there is statewide. So,
That's a good reason for getting it done quickly, getting the moratorium in quickly.
And he said he can
No.
carve
It's,
out
let me-
anybody who's already started.
Well, we could. That's not in this current resolution.
But
That's
we're not
that's-
passing this
just,
one.
Hold on a second, just to clarify this, because I think you may have misunderstood. That's not an incentive to do the moratorium quickly, because if you are a homeowner and you want maximal financial benefit, if you want to take advantage of those incentives, you have to act quickly. So to put a moratorium in place essentially means that we're saying to the town, the citizens of this town, that they are not going to be eligible to participate in those quickly expiring incentives.
Yeah, but you're saying that they're going to expire in 2019. That would mean that we should do it quickly rather than have these things, start the moratorium later on and then have the thing expire, after that.
I don't think the zoning review committee, I would hope that they're not proposing a blanket ban on any solar in the town moving forward. Not
at all.
Not at all.
Not at all.
With this moratorium
And
is,
there's a provision for variances as well.
They're proposing regulations, which we don't
A
have.
waiver.
that sounds good. That's not yet zoning law, right? What we're saying right now, if we pass the moratorium, we're saying everyone in the town has to stop. No one can do anything until we sort that out. And my point is that people may have made financial calculations based on certain things that are going to expire perhaps sooner than we can act.
Well, we should find out whether there are any people in that position.
That's fine.
And
Well, we can
always
carve them out,
Great.
but we at least need to start.
My point initially, I had no qualms with this resolution that was drafted, other than it applied to residential properties. That was, when we talked about this 2 months ago, that was my primary. I am totally in support of the moratorium on large commercial
Right, so we're all in support of a moratorium to some degree. I need some direction on revising this law to address, to leave it as is effectively, and maybe carve out pending applications. At least if I can get 3 people to point me in that direction, we still will need a full board, don't need a full board, but hopefully we'll have a full board when we do vote on it, and then at a public hearing, it will be addressed at that time. But I think we need to introduce
The moratorium.
a moratorium.
And
But-
at
but-
least start the
but
process.
in light of this report, at least you should also include the wind power as part of that until those regulations can be drafted as well. So we would be revising anyway to include the wind power. Again, I don't know that we need to address the B&Bs or tiny houses. It's not clear to me how much of an impact that really is. We could cover those issues in the moratorium as well. If you
No,
want
I
to deal
don't
with
think
energy
we-
for now, if you want to deal with energy, then deal with solar and wind, since they're proposing, intend to propose amendments, and then we'll have something, and you can vote it up or down.
Yeah, it isn't like we don't ever want it, it's just that we have no regulations for it right now.
I'm with you. Look, we had this conversation 2 months ago. I provided my recommendations 2 months ago as to how I think this moratorium should be changed,
Right.
and then I would support
And
it.
that's all I've done, is I've made my recommendations, but I don't get to vote. So I just need some direction on where at least the majority of the board that's sitting here tonight wants me to include in this, and then we can potentially introduce it at the next meeting. And Damien will have time to review the other details, and if there's a reason to put it off, or make further changes, we can do that. But I don't know if we want to wait till next week to discuss it again, next meeting, discuss it again, and then wait another 2 weeks to
No, I
introduce it.
want to start the process.
No, I think we should just start it, and then when it comes to the time when we have to discuss about the solar or the wind or the setbacks or whatever else has to go with all of this, once we start the moratorium, we can then begin to do the other tasks that we need to do.
Well, we're going to have to introduce the local laws,
And to
no?
introduce, to introduce the local law, so that's going to,
Just to start the process. I mean, and there's plenty of opportunity throughout the whole process with public hearings and, to have public input on, on what the regulations, in addition to all the work the zoning review committee already did.
And it's even sent to the planning board for their comment before it's adopted as well, and they're ultimately the ones that are going to be, doing the site plans in the future too. So it's always good we're required to get their input. They don't always provide it, in my experience, but I don't know how proactive your planning board is with respect to referrals they get from this board on zoning amendments, but we'll see what happens there. So
let's move on then. Let's do some next steps. Let's find out if there are any pending applications first, for starters.
no, I want
Go ahead.
to do the resolution.
Okay. You want to pass this as it is?
No,
here?
we just want to
authorize me to
authorize
proceed.
him to proceed.
So we'll find out how many pending applications, and maybe that'll address whether we need to amend, Section 5 about currently pending applications or future applications. I think we'll leave it like this for now. I'm sensing at least 3 people preferring to address the residential while we're doing it. And this is just ground.
I don't think a straw poll is appropriate.
Right, but I need, all right, this is the way it's drafted. Then it'll be introduced, and you can vote it up or down then.
Thanks.
It's not a straw poll, but
I mean,
it
I
needs some
don't
input.
think it's appropriate for you to gauge how the members of this board may or may not vote based on our discussion publicly. That's all I'm saying. And also,
I'm just
that
trying
And
to
it's
gauge
not appropriate for
what-
you to gauge how we will vote either.
I have not done so.
Right, I'm just trying to gauge what to write, and then it's up to you whether you want to introduce it or not. This was originally written a couple months ago, as you know, so I think it is time to move forward with something. All I'm suggesting is we can introduce it the way it is, or if there's strong opposition to it, we can take out the residential component. But I don't know how to do that unless you're going to let me gauge the conversation.
Okay. I mean, again, I've provided my feedback
Okay.
in writing about 2 months ago. I suggest that in order to address some of the questions that I heard tonight, we find out if there are any pending applications.
Correct.
If any of the other board members have any feedback or comments or concerns, or if not, that's also fine. But I don't want to keep talking.
So are we going to have, do we have to vote to have a different introduction to the local law?
Well, it hasn't been introduced. That was just a resolution which was tabled. It never got anywhere. So,
So what's the process now?
well, I'm going to go back and I'll get the answer to this question, or you can someone will get the answer to this question about the pending applications. Depending on that, I may amend Section 5B to address that issue. I'm going to include a provision about the wind energy. And as of now, I'm leaving it applicable to both residential and commercial.
Yes.
in light of the presentation made by the zoning review committee last week. It could get introduced, you can debate it, you could potentially amend it, and then we have to relay it, but, we're not in a position now to vote on the exact language because it's not here.
I think you should do it just as you propose.
Okay.
Agreed.
Right.
I agree with that.
All right, so we'll have that for our first meeting in June.
And we'll also find out.
We'll find
for
out
you
before that.
And for the benefit of the board,
Yeah.
if there are any current pending applications.
Yeah.
I'm happy to take that task.
Okay, and does the board want to look at, have any discussion with the water law? I mean, we've already had our,
Yeah, I mean, just to address some of the, thanks to Sharon for taking the interest and commenting. I've also never heard Amenia referred to as Ameniaville, which I thought was pretty cool. I'm going to use that from now on.
I mean, the water laws are solely for the water district.
Right, so let me read what
I mean, not
Sharon's concern.
any of the other hamlets.
Sharon's concern was that the references to the public water supply system in this document may be misinterpreted or, be
I don't
not...
read it that way, Damien.
I don't. I'm reading the definition right here. It says the town water system within the town of Amenia, known as the Town of Amenia Water District Number 1,
Yep.
and identified as public water supply ID number NY 1302759, which provides piped water to the public for human consumption, etc. It is pretty specifically defined in there, so, I hear her concern, but I think that it's addressed here. And- Sorry?
Exclusively.
Yes.
Ma'am?
If you, it's fine with me. You're the only one here, so thank you for being here. Did you say you're drunk? What?
No.
Sharon is correct that it's not totally consistent throughout. So use the word exclusively in the opening. It applies exclusively to that district.
Okay, I mean,
Then any other reference would be only that district, nothing else. Tell her that takes care of it. She'll be back to tell you it doesn't, but that's okay. Ameniaville is the second name, by the way, not the first.
well, I know the first one, the Corners. It's to be
That's
on
okay.
TV.
You don't have to. You're young. And I like the idea of a moratorium. That doesn't sound like me, but I like it only for commercial while you're looking into it. I think you could have a moratorium on any commercial, freestanding or not roof mounted. That way people who can get the benefits of the waning solar credits that are going away wouldn't be impacted at all, and you wouldn't have to look at permits or anything if you use the word, just for the moratorium. Now, I'm not saying in the final bill, but for the moratorium, which you'd like to get started, I can tell, and I kind of agree, but not for residential under the moratorium, because that gives people time to do that, which Damien brought up and is very valid, while you're proceeding with both, you can say both solar and wind.
Wind, yes.
Commercially for now. And that stops everything that isn't a residential permit, and there probably aren't very many anyway. But that way you're not impacting the regular people who might benefit from the benefits that are coming. Night, guys. Good to see you.
Howler's Corners?
Now,
It's going to drive me nuts.
Now, one thing about the water law that was suggested was that we take the rates out of it and have the rate separately as an addendum.
Oh, okay.
So then, anytime you decide to change your rates, you don't have to amend the local law.
And you don't have to
That's
read it.
true enough, yes.
The whole thing. Yeah.
So I think that's what we'll do
That is-
going forward.
Whose recommendation? That was a great recommendation. Yes.
Okay, the only other matters I have is, I got an email from BAS who said our server is a very old version of Windows 2008.
Yes.
And I had no idea that Microsoft is going to drop support for both the server and exchange versions in April of 2017. So I think so all I need is from you is approval for server upgrade. I had extra money in that line anyway because I was going to purchase some laptops, but they're going to have to wait till next year, I think. They're only going to do half of it this year, the way they explained it.
I also have very strong opinions on this particular topic.
No, what would that be?
I feel that there are potentially better systems we may want, options, and but I do know that a lot of the workflow of town hall revolves around our current set of tools, and I don't want to disrupt that. So, if everyone here is happy with the Windows, Microsoft ecosystem, which I find to be expensive and in need of constant server upgrades, and
Well, it said the server softgrade first in 1 year, and then the Exchange email software would be next year. So we're not even addressing that part of it this year.
yeah, I'm just, the other options I'm referring to are like, we don't host a server here at Town Hall at all. We don't incur that expense. We don't have to pay somebody to upgrade the software. We don't have to pay somebody to fix the hard drive. We don't have to pay the electricity bill to run it. We just have, cloud-based email solution. But again, I don't want to, I wouldn't feel comfortable advocating for that without understanding better how the people in this building rely on the current tool set day to day, so I'll just,
Your next day off, come on into the town hall.
okay. How much is the, and what do they want to go to, 2012?
Yes. 2012 R2.
And that gets us 25 users, so 25 computers here in Town Hall. Is that enough? Do we?
Yes.
That's good. And then also there's a Outlook update for our email. I mean, look, I'll take anything would be better than our current situation. And I agree that it's risky to have it no longer be supported by Microsoft. It's $3,600.
I'm sorry, are you making a motion? You're just,
I'm emotional about this. I can't.
you're emotional.
I am.
No motions when you're emotional, right?
You can't have emotions.
So can we have a motion to give me the authorization to sign this server upgrade? So
I make the motion that we give you the authorization to sign the server's upgrade.
I will second it.
Michelle, Jim. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I heard the aye. He did say it. I heard it.
Pick your battles, right?
I know, but you are welcome to visit the town hall anytime.
is there any other public comment? Town board comments?
I just have a couple of things. The one I would like to remind folks, Tally-Ho Estates Senior Community, we will be having our our spring tag sale and the Dutchess County ASPCA Drive this Saturday from 9 to 4. Also, Tally-Ho Estates has a job opening for a full or part-time person at $15 an hour. They need a driver's license, social security number, and they have to be 18 years or older. And it's kind of like a laborer or maintenance guy. It's nothing highly technical. It's just someone to do the little bits and things that they need done. And if you are interested, you call Tally-Ho at area code 845-877-3776. I told you that. And, oh, by the way, the bus trip is filled and done for where are we going? It's the Lobster Fest. It's done, and I just like to remind people, we have deadlines, and I do extend them from time to time. But it comes to a point I cannot extend it beyond a certain point, because we have to get the monies in, we have to make our reservations, and Marge has to cut the checks, and we have to send them out. So I'm sorry for folks who may be calling me now and saying, oh, Michelle, I meant to do it whenever. I can't put you on the bus anymore. It's done. We have 42 people going. I would just like to encourage you to please, get your money in on time. And I'm just going to let you know the next big event for our, well, we have the Memorial Day stuff here, but in July, Saturday, July 28th, last Saturday in July, is the seniors picnic at the Wasaig Fire Company. And it's free to all the seniors in Amenia, and I hope everybody will be attending. Flyers will go out, one on the TV and the computer and all of those things like that.
When is your Memorial Day?
And the Memorial Day Parade for Tally Ho is on Tuesday, May 29th. And it's from 11 o'clock. The parade starts. We have the Dover High School marching band comes down, and the Wasaig Fire Company will be there, and they march right down Scotch Ride, which is our main drive, and down to our clubhouse. We have a little presentation with the flag. Our veterans will all participate in the flag presentation, the laying of the wreaths, and things like that, and we feed the band and participants hot dogs and stuff. All veterans, if you're a veteran in the town of Amenia, please come. You're welcome to come. We won't turn you away for a hot dog or a piece of cake.
10 o'clock?
Come down.
10.
We have a very good time. This is our 14th
parade,
year
right?
for Tally Ho. It's been doing it for 14 years. So I think the
At
town.
10?
When's the town's?
Okay, the town's Memorial Day ceremony is the 28th at 11 o'clock at Fountain Square. I believe we're having a parade this year.
Starting off at the firehouse, come down about 10:30, so at 10:45 we can kick off and greet.
Okay, then we want another parade. See, come to the parades. We love parades. And we'll see everybody come out for that. So it's going to be a great time. Memorial Day is it's a sacred day, and I welcome everyone to come to that. I'm sorry, I get sad for Memorial Day.
And you're all invited to the town of Amenia also at 11 o'clock at Fountain Square.
So come on down.
Are there any other town board comments? Jim?
I'll make my motion to adjourn.
And I second it.
That's his favorite motion.
That's the motion that I make every time.
It's Jim's motion.
Yeah.
So I know you guys are